Welcome to Good Life. I'm Dean Wilson. I'm so glad you're with us, wherever you're joining us. If you're on the airwaves here in Santa Barbara, California, at TV Santa Barbara, or if you're joining us at goodlifetelevision.org, we welcome you. And we also welcome you if you're joining us at our podcast, which is Good Life Conversations. It's been great to see so many of you joining us there. And we're talking about the good stuff. We've had some really wonderful people. If you go to goodlifetelevision.org, you can see them all. You can search. There's just some incredible guests. I think it'll inspire you. We're trying to dwell on. I think what we dwell on is so important. And these days, there's a lot of negative to dwell on, or you can choose to dwell on the wonderful things, the wonderful people, the wonderful projects, things that are excellent and noble and praiseworthy and inspirational. And so that's what we're trying to do here. And so we're glad you're with us for the ride. Goodlifetelevision.org. And you can also follow us on the social media platforms. And we post what we call power clips at those places as well. I'm really grateful and excited about my guest today. Rebecca Shasberger is with me. Rebecca, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So Rebecca and I share an alma mater at Westmont College. She has a bachelor's in music and she was a minor in religious studies at Westmont College. And then she went on to get her master's in cello performance and Suzuki pedagogy. I rehearsed it and I still blew it. It's okay. You can tell I'm not in that field. At the Cleveland Institute of Music. So since graduating from Westmont in 2015, she's been in Cleveland, and so there's a wonderful project and work that she's involved in that we're going to get to. But Rebecca, start with just kind of growing up. You grew up here. I knew of the Shasberger name when I was at Westmont, and even though I wasn't a music student, but talk a little bit about growing up in Santa Barbara around Westmont and that experience.
Yeah, well, my family moved to Santa Barbara when I was in junior high, and it was a big shift from where we had been previously in Colorado, but it was certainly a beautiful place to spend some really formative years of my life, the later part of my childhood and through high school and college. So many wonderful memories of the people who I got to know and spend time with, of really influential teachers and mentors. And I'm really grateful for the years that I had in Santa Barbara.
Were you growing up, were you always interested in music? I mean, I'm assuming so, but
But I wasn't always sure that it was what I was going to do. Well, I was going to say, I wasn't always sure that it's what I wanted to do professionally. But having said that, from the time I was a really little girl, I talked about wanting to play my cello, and I was really inspired by biographies I used to read of missionaries. So, somewhere there's a journal entry when I couldn't even spell cello yet, saying that I was going to take my cello and go to Africa. And so there was always a dream to do music, but through junior high and the beginning of high school, there was a competing interest in maybe doing something in theater. I was very involved with the plays and musicals that happened in those years. But by my sophomore year of high school, I was very confident that I wanted to pursue music. I just didn't know exactly what that was going to look like, because the traditional paths that you're told to pursue as a classical musician weren't necessarily things that I was really excited about. But I loved playing music.
So you always loved playing.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Was
even
it
as a kid, loved playing.
was it always the cello, or did you do different things?
I originally started on the violin. When I was 4 years old, I started playing violin, probably because my big sister was playing violin. And in the Shasberger household, it wasn't a choice if you're going to play an instrument. The only choice was which instrument you were going to play. So I started violin, and then I must have heard a cello somewhere, because when I was 5, I told my parents that I really wanted to play that one too. And after a couple years of playing both, my mom said, "This is too much. It's too many hours trying to practice both instrument. It's too many lessons. You can pick one. And so I picked the cello over the violin because I really wanted to sit down to practice.
Hmm.
And when you play the violin, you have to stand up to practice.
So that was the reason.
Yep.
Wow.
Yes.
That's wonderful. Music is such a powerful thing. I was listening to a podcast a couple of days ago where they were talking about kind of this universal language. What is it in your experience? What is it about music? I mean, I believe it's a gift from God, obviously, but what is it about music that is so powerful?
It's a great question, and I confess I don't know exactly how to answer it. Research has been done about the ways that it stimulates different parts of our brain and our emotional response, and studies have been done about how it impacts cognitive development and these sorts of things. But at the end of the day, it's really hard to quantify what the impact is of music in numbers and in data, but it's something that we all experience, that people speak to. Like you said, it's this sort of universal force and language. And so it's hard to say exactly what it is about music that people
Yeah.
are able to resonate with. I think uh, there's just a beauty to it that we were designed to respond to.
Yeah, I agree. Well, first of all, before I get to this project, what was your experience like at the Cleveland Institute? What was that like? I think I haven't met a lot of people who have gone all the way in terms of their masters in something like this. What was that experience like?
It was a very intense, very positive experience. I ended up choosing to stay with a liberal arts college for undergrad at Westmont, and I'm very grateful for that experience. I learned so much, and I wouldn't have had it any other way. Going from a liberal arts setting to a conservatory setting, though, was a big shift, and the level of expectation in terms of the quality of your playing was dramatically higher. The level of playing of my peers challenged me every day to practice more, to practice smarter, to find that next step in your progress. I had some really inspiring, terrific teachers while I was there, and there's names in the classical world that are sort of revered and held up, and I got to work with some people who would be on those lists during my time in my master's degree. So I feel very fortunate, very grateful to have had a chance to walk the same hallways and sit under people's tutelage while I was at CIM.
So I want to read. So I want to read just a little bit from this article that you wrote. You said, I grew up playing the cello and attended the Cleveland Institute of Music, where I earned a master's degree and so forth. And then you said, but a dissonance began growing within me. Squaring up against the concert hall experience was the fact that some people don't have food to eat every day or live in refugee camps. Those broken things in our world felt very distant from the beautiful concert halls where I was playing, and I didn't know what to do with that. So take me back there in terms of kind of that dissonance you were experiencing, and then I want to talk about kind of what's happened since.
Yeah. Well, it was there for a lot of years, even before I came out to CIM. I can remember times throughout, even in high school. Actually, I have a vivid memory of a time that a group of us from my high school, Providence, went down to the Santa Barbara Rescue Mission, and we helped serve dinner and did a chapel service for the folks who were there. And that was a really formative experience for me. I realized that I had a lot of preconceptions about people experiencing homelessness, what they were like, what they would like to listen to, and I was wrong on so many levels. I was wrong. And so it was a very humbling experience and a very eye-opening experience. And experiences like that and others, in addition to the things that you see on the news or different stories that you read, just were sitting inside me, even when I was performing on fancy stages or attending really elite programs in the summer that, were off in some beautiful mountain retreat somewhere. And I would sit there, whether on stage or in the audience, thinking, my goodness, this is beautiful. What a privilege to get to be part of this. And also, there's so many people for whom this experience would be positively unthinkable because their reality is so far removed in terms of access to music or even access to some of the basic things that we need to be surviving, thriving humans. So I would sit there in the audience wondering, like, why am I here? What am I doing? There's plenty of cellists trying to play in this fancy hall. No one would miss me if I was gone. I mean, they might miss me because they liked my personality or something, but someone else would take my place. What about all those other places and communities and settings where there just isn't any music? And wrestling with what is even the role of music, if we're looking at the fact that some people don't have clean water or some people don't have a house to live in, is music even important, or should I quit music and instead work to provide clean water and food? And so I really wrestled with these questions about privilege and access and what it means to be a person who has this musical training in the midst of communities that have a lot of different challenges at times.
Yeah, that's great. And so you did something. You in 2018 you founded, and this is another pronunciation. It's Renovare, right? Or
Renovare.
Renovare,
Mm-hmm.
both of them. Renovare. And what I like about this, what I think is powerful and wonderful, is that you're in the music world. That's your, I think how God's gifted you in many respects, it seems like. And so you actually did something to help others and I want you to talk about it, but that was actually kind of connected to the world that you were in, using your knowledge, gifts, abilities, connections, whatever, to bless and serve. But you did it in something connected to where your kind of your passion is. But so tell us about it and kind of tell us what you've done over the last 4 years and kind of what your vision is for it.
Sure. Well, I finished my master's and I started to work in the ways that one is expected to work after getting a master's in cello performance and Suzuki pedagogy. I was playing with orchestras and chamber ensembles and teaching cello, and I quickly realized that this life wasn't going to be uh, sustainable and fulfilling for me in the long term, in part because of this tension that I felt. And even as I was wrestling with particular areas of our world and community that I had learned more about, for instance, the realities of mass incarceration, I had this sense that I was not supposed to abandon my music. And, I lamented at times the fact that I hadn't gone into law or I hadn't gone into something that seemed more practical for making a positive impact or for really achieving change. So my prayer became, God, what do I do? I'm a musician. What do I do as a musician to engage in the complexity of our world? And so Renovare is, in many ways, the journey of trying to figure out the answer to that question. What does it look like as a musician to engage the community? So we've developed a number of different programs and ways that we try to do that. The most straightforward, perhaps, is that we bring concerts into spaces that wouldn't have access otherwise. So, prisons, homeless shelters, hospitals, centers for refugees and immigrants, other education areas and things in neighborhoods that have been disinvested in. And all of these experiences we try to make really interactive, really engaging for audiences who maybe have never heard a cello or a violin before. And we talk with our audiences, we ask their opinions, we listen to their thoughts on the music or on some theme that we're exploring in the concert. And that's really important to us, that it's a conversation, it's a two-way street. It's not just that we have this gift and we are going to brighten your afternoon. We hope it does brighten their afternoon. We hope it does encourage and uplift their spirit. But we have also been really blessed, really challenged, really inspired by the perspective and the comments that our audience members share in the course of those concerts. I'll never forget one of our concerts. We had crafted our concert program based off of requests that we received from men at a prison. And along the way, we would stop and ask them, who requested this song and why did you request it? And we gave them a chance to share why that piece or that song was meaningful to them. And one of them had requested a Kanye West song, Jesus Walks. And you don't always expect strings to play Kanye, but it can be done. And we asked, who requested this? Why did you request it? And the guy who had asked for the song said he wanted to hear it because he said, there's a line in the chorus that says, Jesus walks with us. And that's what I have to remind myself of every morning, is that Jesus walks with us. And it was just such a profound and compelling reminder from a man who's been in prison for years that Jesus walks with us, even in prison, wherever we find ourselves, that God is there and God is present and God is consistently loving us. And so their testimony is powerful. Their thoughts are really formative and needed for those of us who are also trying to share something with them. So we have this concert area of bringing these live music experiences. We also developed a whole area of concerts to try to share some of these stories and perspectives that we get the privilege of experiencing. So we have one coming up that particularly features women and their stories of overcoming addiction or human trafficking or incarceration. And some of those are narratives that we've compiled through interviews that we put music to, kind of like a soundtrack. Others are songs that we've co-written with women through this really innovative process called documentary songwriting. They don't have to have any musical background or training, and we can sit down and in the course of a couple of sessions write a song together that tells a piece of their story. And it's a really powerful process to be part of, whether you're the storyteller or the songwriter, coach, teaching artist, to watch them come to believe in their own ability and creativity in a new way and process their story. It's really powerful. So we have that whole area of our programming to really try to bridge communities that wouldn't get a lot of access to each other's stories. We also do some concerts and events that are more explicitly Christian, worship events, prayer services, things to be able to speak in really clear terms with people of faith about what God is doing or how we hope to see God move. And then we teach 2 weekly classes, one at a men's prison and one at a women's prison, where the residents are learning to play violin, viola, or cello. So we have those 2 teaching programs and then a whole bunch of different live music events that we do.
Wow. So you bring live music, like performances, into places that wouldn't otherwise get it. You're doing these kind of documentaries. Is that kind of what they're called?
Documentary songs. Mm-hmm.
Documentary songs. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then you're actually teaching, you actually have students. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So like how many students would you teach on a regular basis?
Right now we have 13 men at Grafton Correctional Institution, and we have 16 women at the Northeast Reintegration Center.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow.
And when we first posted the sign up to see how many women might be interested, because we just launched the women's prison class in March. Originally, we had 68 women sign up that they wanted to learn to play an instrument. So we had to cap the class at 16, but a lot of women wanted to.
What a great idea. I have to ask this just because do you know, have you ever seen Shawshank Redemption?
I have, yeah.
Remember that scene when they're in the prison yard and Andy Dufresne is in the warden's office or whatever and locks out the locks out the guards and turns the music on in
Yeah.
the, I don't know why I'm saying this. It's
Yeah.
like my favorite movie. But that was such an amazing little moment. Like to see their faces when they were hearing this beautiful music.
Yeah.
What, you know, and that's what's so amazing about it. I mean, because it's beautiful in its own right,
Mhm.
and there's the whatever that is, and then there's, it can take you to another place,
Yeah.
you know. Like I
Mhm.
was, the kind of the wistful kind of looks on their faces in the prison yard is there,
Mhm.
you know, maybe they hadn't heard music in, you know, years, decades, I don't know,
Yeah.
but you get the sense when you look at their faces, like maybe this is taking them to a different place in their life.
Mhm.
Is that, I mean, do you resonate with that?
Yeah. And that's the kind of feedback that we get, especially in prison settings. People will tell us, like, uh, I felt like I left prison for an hour. Thank you. Um, or we had someone say the other day, I never thought I'd see heaven. Thanks for giving me a glimpse of it.
Ah,
It's a profound honor to hear feedback like that after a
oh
performance.
my gosh,
So, yeah.
that's amazing. So what is kind of your vision here? I mean, this is, you know, it's not brand new, but it's young.
Yep.
And you know, it seems like you're not going to have a issue with demand, is, you know, at least relative to the you know, like learning music in prisons. Or so
Mhm.
what is your thought process here?
Yeah, well, right now there's two of us working full time to make this nonprofit happen, and we have a board of directors as well. But I'd love to see the staff team grow to be maybe 5 to 7 full time employees and to be able to do more performances. I think we're gonna surpass 80 performances this year, but it's an awful lot to juggle as just two of us. So to grow the team, to be able to do more, and we're working on a partnership with the Oberlin Conservatory to bring some of the college students in to help teach at the men's facility, which could allow us to grow the number of students we can have out there, since we'll have some help with the teaching side. And we might someday try to have a similar relationship with the Cleveland Institute of Music to bring some of those students in to help with the women's prison. In terms of geography, those are the most logical partnerships. And then I'd love to see someday a community orchestra that is designed to help provide some continued musical experiences and a sense of community for the alumni of our teaching programs on the inside of prison, so that when they get out, they can continue to learn to play and to meet people who are in the community. There's so many barriers to people who are trying to reenter to the society after prison. So to provide a space where they can not only keep enjoying music at a in a way that's not cost prohibitive and get to know other people in the community. Northeast Ohio has a really amazing art scene. There's a ton of amazing professional musicians, but also a huge community of amateur players. And so there's probably already half a dozen community orchestras out there, lots of adults who went into other fields but can still play. So to have one that was specifically geared towards people reentering is a dream I have as well. And to be able to build out some of our songwriting projects, to be able to offer that to more communities as well. So I have often too many ideas.
Oh, I love it.
But
I love it. Yeah, I mean, so Good Life is presented by the Turner Foundation, which is the foundation here in California. And we have a music program for kids, and it's the same kind of thing that we think of in terms of, I mean, not the same kind of thing, but the principle of, you know, we're trying to give the gift of music to people who wouldn't otherwise receive it, you know. And as we think about that, and as we think about the possibilities, it's like there's endless possibilities. Like it's the same what you just said. I mean, it's not, the ideas are just, there's many, And so the question is just how do we put one foot in front of the other? But
Mhm.
so are you privately supported? Is like just individual donors? Is it how are you supported?
Primarily through individual donors. We've started to look into more grant funding. Often, as a young nonprofit, you have to show a couple years of tax returns before you can even apply. So,
Right.
we're just starting to be eligible for some of those. And we've started to build some partnerships with other nonprofits. And ideally, we'd love to develop some church partnerships to help with the funding as well. And we have a small portion that comes through earned income from ticket sales at performances that are intended for people who have the means to pay for that. But the vast majority of it comes from individual donors.
And can you give us the website? I think I had it written down, but what is the website, the main website for the foundation?
Renovaremusic.org.
Okay, Renovare Music. So it's RENOVARE music.org. That's where we can find you. Well, I hope people will take a look at this. I haven't actually heard of something like this. I mean, I haven't heard of somebody doing what you're doing. It's very inspiring. It's exciting. I'd encourage you. I've had some experience at younger nonprofits. I know that can be very difficult and stressful and draining thing. So stay the course.
Thank you.
We're rooting for you. And it's wonderful what you're doing, though. I applaud. I mean, it's wonderful that you did something. That's what's I just think that's so powerful. So congrats and thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you. It's a joy. I mean, there's late nights sometimes, but
Yeah.
it's a privilege to get to pursue it.
That's great. Thank you, Rebecca Shasberger, everybody. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.